Welcome to today's episode of the Working Wisdom podcast series, brought to you by the C.T. Bauer College of Business at the University of Houston. We're having a conversation about work-life balance, how to navigate and overcome challenges within your career, and how to make business more accommodating to a diverse workforce.
Hey there, everyone. My name is Giovanni Rosselli. I'm the Director of Alumni Relations for the C.T. Bauer College of Business at the University of Houston.
Howdy, everyone. My name is Adam Arafat. I am a market development representative at DocuSign. I was born and raised in Houston, Texas. And for the past 2 years, I've been working as a technology sales representative. And I was a part of the University of Houston. I was highly involved in the program for excellent design. Got this mug from it, just in case you don't believe me. And that's a little bit about me.
That's great. Well, Adam, thanks for joining us. I know that you are from Houston, but you currently work in Seattle, Washington.
Yep.
And one of the interesting things about your story, and to remind our viewers and listeners, we spoke earlier this summer before setting up this podcast. One of the things that really inspired me about you was your career search and the tenacity that you showed in your career search. Can you tell our viewers and listeners a little bit more about that part of your journey?
Yeah, absolutely. So it started off like right when I graduated back in summer of 2018. I just came back from study abroad in Czech Republic. And I was like, well, I should probably get a job so I can make money and I can pay off the rest of my tuition. So I applied to like dang near every company in Houston and Austin, I'd say, and I'm from Bauer and the sales program. I got hit with like 50 rejections. It was just rejection after rejection after rejection. And I was like, dang, I really need to rethink my interview strategy and open up my horizons. Because there was this one company that I got rejected by in Austin after 6 rounds of interviews. I failed the culture interview. And it kind of stung, but I did get some valuable feedback. Like I got to stop saying I and start saying we, because it sounds like I'm taking all the credit. And it gave me a really good idea of the perception that people will have on you, the way you say your words. And so after this rejection, I was like, dang, I need to go back to the drawing board. So there's this thing called the Forbes Cloud 100 list. And I just went through every single company, any company that had an entry-level sales position or a position that I was qualified for. I just sent in an application. And out of those 100, I found 40 that had a position that I was qualified for. And so and that was just one day, over the course of like 2-3 hours at a coffee shop. Back when we could still go to coffee shops, I sent out these applications, and I had like 2 to 3 interviews scheduled a day in like July and August. And the rejections still kept coming. I got rejected, and like some companies are really high up this list. And I was like, dang. But every time I got rejected, I learned a little bit of something. Every rejection, I felt like I got a little bit better in my talk track, my 30-second commercial. And I think the real key turning point was when I started actually smiling. Right? It's such a small thing. But when you're talking to someone like this, as opposed to like this, the interviewers, the people that are looking at you, they really they feel your energy, especially in a career as like sales. They need to know you have that energy, right? They need to know that you're bringing that, you can energize the team rather than de-energize the team. Because a bad hire in sales will not only affect their own individual number, but it'll also affect the overall team. So they have to be very careful when recruiting salespeople. And so on August 22nd, I thought I flubbed another interview, but I actually got a call back saying, hey, we really liked you. The entire team liked you. Do you want to work at DocuSign? And I was just like, yeah, no, give me a second to think about it. So I guess I was taking some time to think about it. Because the recruiter only gave me 3 weeks to relocate from Houston, Texas to Seattle, Washington. But at the same time, I got rejected by so many companies, and this company was by far the highest one that gave me an offer. DocuSign was number 4 on this list back in 2018. I got rejected by some companies that were like 60 and 70 on this list. I was like, okay, this is probably a pretty good opportunity for me. I only got 3 weeks, don't know anybody in Seattle. I probably should pay off the rest of my tuition so I can give them my degree so I can prove that I graduated. Let's make it happen. So I didn't have a lot of money. Not gonna lie, I didn't have a lot of money. As most of University of Houston students, we work through college, we pay our own tuition. So I took the last bit of money that I had, paid off my tuition, sent over the degree. They said, all right, you got the green light. But they didn't have a relocation cost. One of the challenges with these rapidly growing emerging tech companies is that they don't always have the standard operating procedure that these older older legacy companies have. And so I was like, oh man, this is gonna, I don't have a lot, because like an average hotel in downtown Seattle is like $300 a night. And I was like, I can't make that work. But I was using my savviness. I found a one-star hotel, also known as a hostel. Have you ever stayed at a hostel, Giovanni?
I haven't, but I am definitely aware of their existence.
Yeah, so I was like, it was a hostel 10 minutes away from my office. And I was like, there we go. And this was just coming back from Europe. So I was like, I love hostels. You meet new people, they're fun, they're interesting. That's very true for a European hostel. The culture around an American hostel is a little bit different. Because it's not just people looking to travel and have a good time. It's also people that are looking for just a place to stay because they have nowhere else to go. And overall, after a long day of work, going back to a hostel where it's really rowdy, it's not the most, as you can imagine, it's not the most relaxing place to be after a long day of work. And I remember like my first couple of days at work, I would just get back home, or not home, but to the hostel. And I'd be trying to sleep at night. I remember this one particular night, I couldn't sleep, not because I was super stressed about making this move to this new city, starting this new job, but really was because there was somebody in the bunk above me and he was just snoring. I can't sleep apnea and I just couldn't sleep. By the way, I don't know if I mentioned a hostel, you share a room with 8 other people on average. You can hear, if one person snores, everyone suffers.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that, because unless our listeners are world travelers, they might not be familiar with the hostel concept.
Yeah. And he was just snoring. And all these thoughts were going through my head of why did I move out here? I don't know anybody here. You know, I didn't sign a lease yet. I could just go back home and keep looking for jobs. And that thought was really on the edge, the top of my head. I was like, I don't know if I want to stay here. This is, I don't know if I made the right decision. I'm not feeling so happy right now. But I thought, if I stay here, will I grow? And that's like my personal mantra, and what I like to always chase is growth. And society grows, people grow when we challenge ourselves, and we stagnate when we do not, right? And so I thought, new city where I don't know really anybody, first real career out of college, high cost of living. If I can stick it out here, at least for a year, it'll definitely be a challenge, and I'll definitely grow from it. And so I stuck it out, and it's been over 2 years now, and we're still rolling with it. That's where I'm at.
That's great. Well, thanks for sharing. And, you know, as much as I would like to say, well, first off, I will stop and say your story is quintessentially Bauer, and by association, UH. We hear similar stories all the time from our alumni. I'd like to think that the university and Bauer have a filter that they select, and they're very good at identifying the grit and the determination that our alumni seem to have. However, I guess I want to flip that and maybe pose it to you as a question. How much would you credit the college and the university for kind of teaching you that tenacity and that grit, and how much of it is innate to what you personally bring to the table? Was what you have personally enhanced by your education at Bauer?
100%. There's a reason why I have this degree right here. Bauer helped a lot, but where I really got my development and where I understood where growth comes from challenge is when I was part of the sales program. Like being in a class where you have a quota, it's uncomfortable. Calling someone on the phone and being like, hey man, you want to join my golf tournament? It's nerve-wracking. It's really nerve-wracking. It's scary. And like up to that point, I only did like retail sales when I was working my parents' car stereo shop. So I was like a pull sale, just waiting for people to come in. You're not really trying to like build your own clientele. This was like a much more different thing. So that got me out of my comfort zone. It really got me to understand how hard it is to drive business. And then when I got into all these other high-level sales classes, it made me realize my big mantra, like I said earlier, growth comes from challenge. Growth solves a lot of problems in my life. And if I can chase that growth, then I'm heading in the right direction. There's an old adage, I don't know if you guys play video games, but they say if you're going in the way towards the enemies, you're going the right way, right? So I like to think that going towards if you go towards challenge, you go towards growth. And I'm all about growth mindset.
So reflecting back on your time, or continuing to reflect on your time at UH and Bauer, is there like a seminal moment that you can think on that was your favorite memory of your time there? Or, was there a physical part of campus that you just couldn't get enough of as a student that you kind of wish that you could experience one more time?
I do miss just hanging out in Melcher Hall. I'm not like just coming out of class, hanging out with Melcher Hall, like, and just chopping it up with my friends, or my homies, as we call each other. But if I were to say one specific moment that like really helped define my character and like really was a defining moment, when I was in the key account class, we were responsible for renewing the corporate partners, right? And we had this. I was working with this partner that didn't have the best experience with us. I wasn't sure if they were going to renew. I didn't know if it was going to be the best situation. So they're located in Dallas, and we're in the parking lot, and it starting to snow. And our corporate relations manager at the time turns to me and says, "I'm about to walk in to our most conservative partner, to a meeting with our most conservative partner with blue hair," and I was just like, "Thanks, I needed that." And I was like, and so we go into this meeting. I'm nervous because it's so like I have a key account team, and this is a team sell. Each representative on the team has like the main account that they focus on. This is the account that I was focusing on, and I know there were things that we could have done better, and that there was not the most ROI in the partnership yet. We still have a lot of work to do. And so we run through the presentation. My team and I outlined the challenge that the partner was facing when engaging with the students when it comes to recruiting, and we outlined how we can improve it and make this next semester or the next year even better. And I was like, yeah, yada yada yada. And then I lean in. I'm like, so, Jay, in order to start planning for next semester, are you willing to sign this $10,000 agreement? He pauses for a second and just goes, sure. And I'm like sweating visibly, like, is he gonna say yes? Is he gonna say yes? And he's like, yes. So I take take the agreement. Back when we used to use paper, I don't use paper anymore, but back when I used to use paper, I took it on the table, I slid it across the table. He was about to sign it. He was like, wait a second. And I'm just like sweating. I'm like, oh my God, he's gonna sign it? He signs it. He passes it back to me. I pass it to our director of corporate relations. He verifies it. And then a few days later, I get the email, closed one, they paid $10,000, and we had another year-long partnership. And I definitely could have done it better, and I definitely it was a struggle, it was awkward, and it was challenging, and I felt weird, and I was like turning red, and I was shaking, and I was like choking in my words. But that challenge really helped develop me and give me the confidence to be an extension of an organization today.
Sure. And as our friend Brene Brown likes to say, you have to lean into the discomfort. And I think your academic career and the early part of your professional career, you kind of epitomize that mindset.
Absolutely. I love Brene.
So we've talked about your time as a student. We've talked about your journey to DocuSign in the early stages of your career. You're also an author.
I am. Soon to be.
in the process.
Yeah.
Tell us about, because not many people, I'm willing to guess, not many people your age are on track to be a published author. So tell us about the concept for this book, how it came to be. And you kind of previewed this with me a few months ago, but I'd love for our viewers and our listeners to be filled in on it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say it really started, I just have a love for reading. I really see that. Here's a good quote by Malcolm X. And he says, education is the passport to the future because tomorrow is owned by those who plan for it today. And I'm sure he was referring more to his time of when he was in prison and reading 15 hours a day. And that really built him up the knowledge base to be the great impact that we see in society back in the civil rights movement. But so I used to read, like, I shouldn't say used to, but I read almost every day, and at least an hour. And back in December 2019, I just got promoted at DocuSign, right? But it wasn't like I moved from like contributor to a manager. It was just moving from like one entry level position to another entry level position. So I wasn't super excited about it. And I was like, well, I'm here making a little bit more money, got a little bit more responsibility, but it's like getting pizza, right? For a year, cheese pizza. But instead of getting cheese pizza, now you can have pepperoni, now you can have black olives. But like, that's just not what I wanted. I wanted steak, I wanted sushi, I wanted something different. And so I was browsing my accounts on LinkedIn, and I saw this gentleman out of Georgetown University who's a professor, entrepreneurship professor, and his tagline on LinkedIn was, I'm working on creating 10,000 authors. And I was like, how would you do that? How would you do that? I'm like, all right, Georgetown, maybe he's legit. Maybe he's legit. Let me do some research. So I check out his program called the Creators Institute. And basically what it is books should not be seen as something that people who've already done something great are privileged to write, but rather writing a book can be seen as a way to discover new opportunities or discover greatness. And when I saw the statistics of this program, that 90% of the people that go into it and come out of it have a published book, I'm just like, you know what? This is lighting up. Just reading this syllabus lights a fire in my belly. I'm gonna see if I can get into it. And so I meet with Professor Kester. I tell him about my passion, my dreams, and what are the things I want to accomplish in the future. One of them being owning a Mediterranean bakery. But he's like, yeah, this book could be a way for you to do research into the industry. This book could be a way for you to interview people in this industry. This could get your name out in this industry. And I'm like, okay, I think you're right. So that's actually what the book started about. It was originally going to be a story that included recipes of things like something you might be familiar with. Do you know what baklava is?
I do. Yep.
Do you know what kanafa is?
I don't.
Yeah. So baklava is a delicious pastry you're familiar with. Kanafa is like a delicious, cheesy, sugary, mouth-watering dessert that was actually more popular overseas than baklava was. And I think there's a lot of potential for that here. And so I was going to include recipes from this, as well as stories from people that moved from like a third world country to a Western nation, and they define themselves through mixing their third world, their older nature with the new. Like somebody that lived in Syria, and they moved to Brooklyn, but they still preserve this. They create this new identity for themselves because they're not just a Syrian, they're not just an immigrant. They're this new. They have this new thing about them. And that's what originally the book was going to be about back in like December when I first decided I was going to write a book. But for some reason, I don't know if it was an epiphany or if I just remembered or just got some strike of inspiration from my commute back when I used to go to the University of Houston. Every day I would see the Be Someone sign, right? I'm like, what does be someone mean? Be someone, be someone. Why do I know I want to be someone? And why does that inspire me so much?
And if I can quickly interject for our viewers or listeners, unless you live in a cave and you did not know the Be Someone sign, it's what's the right term? It's essentially graffiti art.
Yeah, it's graffiti.
Overpass as you're heading down I-45 South, and you can see the picturesque view downtown. It's an iconic piece of art. Sometimes other artists will try to tag over it, and inevitably they re-tag it as Be Someone. So that's the context.
Yeah, and when I was going to University of Houston, I would see that every single day. So back in like 2017, 2016, it just really inspired me. I was like, wait a second, is there a book called Be Someone yet? So I just do a quick little search through the book archives, also known as Google, and there's no record that I can find of a book called Be Someone. I'm like, you know what? In business, they call this a pivot. So I decided to pivot my original idea of, it was going to originally be called Close Encounters with a Third Culture, to Be Someone. I was like, all right, I know I want my book to be called Be Someone. Now I just got to figure out what it's going to be about. And so in order to make it a compelling book, you need to find a question in an area. And then turn that question into a problem. When I thought about that, what does it mean to be someone? If you want to be someone in the eyes of society, be someone in the eyes of your community, be someone that you can respect, someone for yourself you can respect, if that makes sense. You need to have a clear vision of who you want to be. You need to understand what that vision is. And it's a concept, having vision is a concept that CEOs use to lead and grow companies. And taking that concept and applying it to life, applying it to community, and applying it to movements is what the thesis of my book is about. And the problem that I'm trying to solve here is they did a poll, I think it was back in 2017, that 70% of people in the workforce today are unhappy with their job. They don't feel like they're making a difference. They don't think their work is important. It's kind of task oriented. It's not really overall aligned with a greater mission, a greater vision. And that's a terrible statistic. If 70% of the population is looking to make a move, and that's actually that aligns with the statistics that we see, like the average tenure of a millennial in the workforce is like, what, 1 to 2 years at the company? Some companies pay really well. They still have turnover. Some companies have really good benefit programs. They still have turnover. I think truly that if you can figure out how to operationalize a vision, a concept that CEOs use to lead the greatest companies in the world towards your life, you can satisfy that. There's this concept that I've developed called a generational malaise. And what I mean by that is malaise means discomfort that is hard to define. And as millennials, as we've grown, we're not so satisfied with what past generations used to find purpose in life. For example, back in the day, we had a 9-to-5 factory job, had a couple kids, bought a house, and went to church every Sunday. Now, in 2020 specifically, that 9-to-5 has been replaced with work from home. Houses are bought as investment properties rather than homes. Couples are forgoing having children in favor of their careers. And less of the population, 30% of the population now, does not identify with an organized religion. And so my book, if you can figure out how to operationalize a vision for yourself, I really think we can solve this generational malaise that is plaguing millennials and Gen Z, and just understand what motivates this new generation of worker. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you put a lot of thought into the book, and you've learned that writing a book is no easy feat. There's a lot that goes into it, and a lot of thought too about, starting from the budding idea to fleshing out the concept to actually putting pen to paper. And I'm sure there's an editing process. So in terms of your overall timeline, when is this book supposed to be finished and out the door?
You will be able to buy this book on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and select retailers on December 7th, 2020. Right in time for Christmas.
Sounds like you've rehearsed that just a little bit.
I just got a radio voice, I like to think.
One thing I wanted to be sure and ask you about was your experience as an alumnus of UH in the Bauer College. If you're, some of our viewers and listeners are going to be alumni from the college, what are a few ways that you as an alumnus choose to stay engaged with the university and with the school?
That's a really good question. So I think the best way to stay engaged, and this is how I stayed engaged with UH, is not to think of it as some altruistic sense of charity that you need to give back. The University of Houston is a very unique school, and I don't think a lot of people realize that. The sales program is like the widely regarded as the nation's leading sales program. Not many people can say they slid over a $10,000 contract to a customer in college. We have the number one entrepreneurship school as well, or entrepreneurship program, where people start real businesses in that program and just continue them into the real world. And so what I mean, and to illustrate my involvement with the university, in addition to checking in with Bauer and being here today, I've been trying to not only work with my company to get students from the University of Houston good jobs at DocuSign, but also use the talent from the University of Houston to solve a critical business problem at DocuSign. Because we're going from 1 billion to 5 billion right now. And as we grow, we're trying to get as many diverse perspectives as possible, because there is clear strategic advantage from having a diverse, equitable, and inclusive work culture, from customer insights, from employee engagement. They've said, or there's research to show that if there's just one group or one ethnic group making all the decisions, it could really impact employee morale and cause them to leave, right? Like if you have a bunch of engineers that their voices aren't being heard and their decisions aren't being made, aren't being made on their behalf, they'll leave. And so I'm working with DocuSign and the university to build this partnership so that we can recruit top diverse talent into DocuSign as we grow from 1 billion to 5 billion. And so finding ways to make the university look good, finding ways to make your employer look good, finding ways to make yourself look good. Stephen Covey said it himself in the book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. You need to find win-win relationships. And when you find win-win relationships, you'll hold yourself accountable to it more because you want to win as well, right?
Sure. No, I think you've helped alumni think a bit differently about how they can engage with their alma mater. A lot of times alumni think about more or less the traditional ways, volunteering their time, maybe making that first-time gift to the university. But oftentimes alumni don't think about paying it forward by helping students get internships or helping their fellow alumni get jobs at their company. Alumni are walking billboards for the university, and you are our best salespeople. And no, I think that's very admirable what you're doing at your employer.
Yeah, and not only that, I wouldn't be able to put time on the CEO's calendar to talk about the University of Houston sales program if I didn't believe in it so much. I wouldn't put time on the VP of Global Talent Acquisitions calendar if I didn't believe in what the university does so much. So to all the alumni out there, there's a lot of different ways you can use the University of Houston to not just get jobs for your fellow colleagues, but to make yourself look good and to use it to your advantage to move up in the company. I truly think if you think this is strategy 101. Another book I would recommend reading, Good Strategy, Bad Strategy by Richard Fumelt, I believe his name is. The kernel of any strategy is figuring out what the challenges are, a guidepost to solving those challenges, and a clear tactics to getting around these challenges, and linking everything together. Really link everything together. That's super important. I would highly recommend evaluating your life and see how you can link everything together so that not only you're making yourself, your people around you look good, but making yourself look good. those win relationships are key. They're key.
Sure. And one of, I think, the crucial links that you made between, corporations and the University of Houston is this importance of diversity and this importance of representation in every workplace. It's so crucial to successful dynamics, both in business, but also employees' happiness in the workplace, right? And one of the beautiful things about UH and Bauer is we are a microcosm of Houston, which is one of the most diverse cities in the country. So when employers take the time to get to know our students and our alumni, they're essentially making their workplaces more diverse in the process. So it's an important link that you made.
Yeah, absolutely. And in my company, this is like a topic we have a conversation around like every day or every week at least. How can we not just be a more diverse place? And there's a really good analogy that I heard someone say about diversity, equity, and inclusion. Diversity is being invited to the party. Inclusion is being asked to dance. While equity is having your decisions or having your voice be heard. I watched this TED Talk the other day about it's titled "Getting Serious About Diversity and Inclusion in the Workplace," and she made a really good point that in the business sector, no other sector has as good of a chance as business to really root out racism, because technology is fueled by growth. It's fueled by innovation. And in order to, if we can align diversity and inclusion into the overall business strategy and make it a problem that we all have, it would be part of this overall strategic plan to overcome that hurdle and make our organizations more diverse. And that's why her name's Jan. I can't remember her last name. She said that business is like the one true sector that can eliminate racism, at least within their sector.
Well, I think that the meta narrative here is that UH and Bauer are training students to go out into the world and tackle these key issues and these challenges. So I couldn't be more proud. As a Cougar in training, I'm currently in school right now at UH, but I couldn't be more proud of you and just the personage that you bring to the table, but also how you were able to be refined through the process of being educated here. And now you're doing great things. Well, Adam, you've given us a ton to think about. I would be remiss if I didn't ask you the proverbial question. If you were speaking to a current student at UH and Bauer today, what advice would you give them now that you were on the other side of the student experience?
Man, get ready. So I'll give two pieces of advice. The first one, you can say so much about working harder than the next person right next to you and all this other positive thought leadership stuff. But at the end of the day, what I was never prepared for when I went into school, they gave me career counseling, personal branding advice, build up my resume, be professional. But no one ever warned me how much of a grind real life is. That 9 to 5, man, it's not as bad as it used to be because I'm working remotely. I've been working remotely and I will be till May. But when I've the first couple months, I would say the first year, you really adjust to this 9 to 5. You're all right, day after day, and man, is this it? And it's like a really existential moment, So I would just say for the first part is stop and smell the roses and chill. Don't work hard, but give yourself take some time to stretch. Take some time to hang out with your friends and family. Take some time to read a book. That's where I'm going into my next piece of advice. And this is concrete. This is tactical. Okay. Every morning, I'm sure minimum 50% of people, the first thing they do is they reach for their phone.
Yeah, I'm definitely guilty of that.
Okay, so rather than reach for your phone on your nightstand, have a book. Doesn't have to be my book, but have a book on your nightstand. And when you wake up in the morning, rather than checking your phone and scrolling Instagram just to see the same things that were posted yesterday, just read a couple pages and make it reading a habit. Because like Malcolm X said, and how I referenced earlier, education is the passport to the future, because today or tomorrow is owned by those who plan for it today. And that's the advice I would give my alumni and my future alumnus, if that's the right term to define.
That's great. Well, Adam, I can't think of a better way to sign off on this episode of Working Wisdom. Thank you so much for your time, and look forward to tracking your progress as you continue to move up the ladder.
All right. Thanks, Giovanni.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Working Wisdom podcast series from the CT Bauer College of Business, brought to you by the Inclusive Leadership Initiative. The initiative aims to develop inclusive leaders and family-friendly cultures that support business strategy and superior business performance. For more information about Bauer and this podcast series, visit www.bauer.uh.edu/podcast.